Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and thank you so much for joining me for another video. As you can see from the title, today we are talking about starting over in your 30s. So in case you're new here, my name is Brittany Morgan. I am 32 years old. I've just recently moved back to a city, living on my own, recently single, started a new job. So I have a lot of thoughts on this and I just wanted to do kind of like a chatty vlog going through some of these things because I'm hoping I can help some of you out there who are struggling or who might just be asking yourself some questions about being in your 30s. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Some of the topics that I wanted to chat about in today's video include friendship, careers, love life, knowing yourself, different priorities, friendships. We're going to cover a lot in today's video and I would absolutely love to know your thoughts and opinions on this as well. So please leave me a comment down below if you have something come up while you're watching the video. So the first thing we're going to jump into and chat about is finances. I've heard someone recently say that if you don't have $100,000 saved up by the time you are 30, that you are going to be very behind in life and you're doing something wrong. I feel like this is just not fair because everyone's path is so different. Like, did you have kids when you were in your early 20s? Do you have a bunch of student debt? Do you have some other thing that happened that you're recovering from or having to pay down? Having $100,000 by the time you're 30 is something only people with quite a bit of privilege, I think, can achieve. And I feel like I can say that because I have gotten to that point. Before I was 30, I did reach that milestone. And I just feel like it's just not realistic for everybody. The thing with finance is that it can always be improved and you can always learn new skills, new mindsets around money and finance. So this is something that you can continue to do, continue to grow throughout your life journey. And being in your 30s doesn't mean that you're behind in any way because you haven't saved $100,000. But getting good with money, I think, is really important in your 30s. This is the perfect opportunity to figure things out, to go through and teach yourself the things that you just weren't taught in school. The one thing I'll say is that if you're in your 30s and you're not getting your full retirement match at work, if your workplace provides that, that would be the bare minimum for me. If you're in your 30s, definitely make sure you're getting that because it's essentially free money. And because it comes off your paycheck, you don't even notice it. So if you take anything away from today's video, take this away. Make sure you're getting your full match for retirement at work. And of course, this applies to people who actually can afford to do that. If you're not in that position, then of course, you can disregard that. But if you're in a position that you can save every month, that should be your number one priority if you're not already doing it. Being in your 30s as well is a great time to start thinking about retirement if you're not already. I know for me, I've been thinking about retirement since I was probably 24 or 25 and been planning accordingly. This is more like general advice in your 30s, not necessarily starting over, but a lot of people in their late 20s, maybe you're going through a divorce, maybe you have a lot of debt from previous things like student loans or you have kids. Getting good with money in your 30s is super important. And I think if you're not there or you're not feeling confident, this is a really good time to start over, start fresh, learn some new skills, watch some YouTube videos, read some books about finance, and just get really good with it because it's crazy the amount of doors it opens when you're good with money and you know how to manage it. Now let's talk about relationships. I feel like this is gonna be one of the juiciest sections of this video. And I'm recently single. I am 32. So it is a little daunting being older and being single. You're in a totally different phase of life as like your early 20s. But I do feel like with the older age and more maturity, you have a much better idea of what you want. And even better than that, you have a really good idea of what you don't want and what you are not going to settle for in a partner. Your 30s are such a great time to rediscover yourself, to make sure that you're putting yourself first in order to attract the person that you really want. You really have to be confident in yourself and comfortable with yourself first if you want a partner at all. Some people just are never going to be in a long-term relationship or aren't gonna get married or aren't gonna do the whole kids thing. So being in your 30s, starting over, this is such a good place to just reflect and think about the things that you actually want out of life. If you're single and in your 30s, especially if you spent the majority of your 20s in a long-term relationship, it can feel really quite scary. I know for me, I have been in long-term relationships since I was, I'm gonna say like 19 years old, with some pretty brief periods in between partners. And I feel like now, being in my 30s in a different phase of life, I really want to give myself the time to sit and reflect and figure out the things that I want and the things that I need to work on as a person before I want to bring someone else into my life again. And I think that just comes with age and maturity. So being in your 30s, being single, it really doesn't have to be scary. Being 30 is not super old. Like, you're still really, really young. Even if you want to have kids and that's in your plan, you don't necessarily have to rush through it if you're in your early 30s. There are a lot of people who are waiting till their late 30s, sometimes early 40s, to have children. It's becoming a little bit more viable to do that. So I think it's just a good time to figure out what you want in a partner. I also think being single in your 30s, you are a little bit more well equipped to do things on your own, to go out and meet people. You're just more mature, you're more comfortable in your own skin, you're more confident, and doing things on your own is not a big deal anymore. I have heard that the dating pool, regardless of what city you're in your 30s, can be not the best, especially if you're on dating apps. I've heard that that is just not a good time whatsoever. But again, I'm just gonna reiterate that I think if you're starting over in your 30s and you're single, that you should be focusing on yourself. Try finding some hobbies that you really enjoy, getting out and just meeting people for the sake of doing that, making friends, being social, and let the right person come to you. Let that just happen naturally. I think if you're in your 30s and you're going out and really trying really, really hard to find somebody, you're gonna end up settling for something that you don't necessarily want long term. And that's just not gonna be great for your life, because choosing a partner is probably the biggest decision that any of us are ever going to make. It just dictates so much in our life that you really have to know yourself before finding the right person. I do think that it's better for you to stay single, stay on your own if you feel like you can't be alone, or that you're in a relationship just because you don't want to be alone. So being in your 30s, I think this is the best time to get really comfortable with being on your own, doing things by yourself, and just getting out in the world and getting to know yourself. Let's talk about friendships in your 30s, making new friends, maybe leaving old ones behind. It can be just as dramatic as relationships. I think if you're starting over, that this is a really good time to reconnect with old friends, especially if you've like moved away from whatever city or town or area that you grew up in. If there are people that you really miss, that you had a really good relationship with, but life got in the way, you moved away, maybe they went off to school or something, they had kids, they dated someone that you didn't like, this could be a really good opportunity for you to reach out and reconnect with those people. I feel like chances are that they kind of feel the same way. If you feel like you miss that person, you miss that relationship, the chances that they are also going to be willing to start it up again are quite high. If you didn't leave things off on a super bad note, this is such a good time to reconnect those old friendships. And it is never too late to make new friends. I know it can be difficult as we get older. I've definitely found that when you don't have coworkers that you really get along with, or you're not in school and kind of forced to make those friendships, it can seem really daunting. But like I had mentioned in the relationship section, if you go out and you do your hobbies, find things that you're interested in, just get out in the world and be a part of the community, go to different festivals, go to different markets, be out and just meeting people in their daily life. This is gonna be your best chance at making friends and getting more comfortable with talking to strangers. I also feel like friendships in your 30s become so much more important. In your 20s, when you're in school and stuff, you have so many different friends and acquaintances that maybe you don't spend a lot of time with, or you don't put a lot of effort into that relationship because it comes natural. And as you get older, things change, people's priorities change, and it becomes a lot more difficult to keep those friendships going. But as we get older, those friendships, particularly the ones that have lasted for decades, the ones that you made in high school or college, become so important as you have children and those kids meet, as you go through marriages and divorces, and family members who are passing away. I think this is such an important time of life because this stuff becomes really common in your 30s to happen to the people around you. And having a good, solid group of friends, or even just a few friends that you really get along with and you really love, this is such a good time to put more effort into those relationships, whether it's reconnecting with old friends or just going out with your current friends more and making sure that they know that they are appreciated, because friends will take you through so many phases of life. Sometimes partners don't work out, sometimes you break up and you move on, but those friends are going to be there through all of those different phases if you put the work in. In the same breath though, I think it's normal to outgrow different friendships. If you're younger and have a bunch of friends, a lot of those people, maybe you don't actually have a ton in common with. Maybe you're just hanging out with them because, you know, they're at the party too, everyone's drinking, they're part of the group, and that's totally fine. But as you get older, if you've tried to put effort into a relationship, if that person doesn't feel the same way and they don't want to be your friend, then it's easier to just kind of let it go and let it fizzle out. If two people want to be in a friendship, same as a relationship, they will make it work and there will be effort on both sides. So if that's not working out for you and, you know, that friend is not in a bad mental space or they don't like actually need your support, then it's okay to outgrow a friendship and to move on. Life goals. So I have had the same life goals probably since like early to mid 20s, and that is FIRE or Coast FIRE. Financial independence, retire early. Again, if you're new to the channel, I have been planning my whole life around FIRE, financial independence, getting really good with money, and to a point where I don't have to rely on a job in order to be comfortable. I've also always wanted to find work that I love doing because I don't like sitting around and doing nothing. I don't have a ton of hobbies that are super time consuming, and I really enjoy being around people. So early retirement has never really interested me, but finding a job that I love that maybe necessarily doesn't pay all that well, getting to a financial position where I could support a lower paying career and job has been my long-term goal with reaching retirement at just a normal age. But being good with money and focusing on the finances of life has been my biggest life goal. For me, self-reflection is the only way that I find out what I want. That sometimes includes reading a bunch of books, journaling, gratitude journaling, going out and just going for like a really long walk, hiking, traveling. There's a lot of different ways that I sort of work through my thoughts and trying to figure out what I actually want outside of societal expectations. Another way that I have found different things that I value is just trying new things and getting out of the house. Like I mentioned in some of these other sections, going out, being involved in the community, trying different events, meeting different people. I think that helps broaden your horizon, allows you to reflect on the goals that you want for yourself. And I'm not talking about like comparing what you have and what your goals are to other people. It's more going out into the world and looking for that inspiration and then thinking it through, self-reflecting on the things that are really important to you, and then making those part of your goals. In recent years, I have added a lot more experience type things to my life goal list. Like I reached a lot of different financial milestones and I feel like I kind of have that covered and I don't need to worry about that anymore. And I'm also in a job that I absolutely love. So I have the two biggest things kind of ticked off my list. So I've just been adding different experiences to my bucket list, let's say, and they are things that are achievable. And I think that's important when you're doing goal setting, to make sure that the things that you want are maybe not the big lofty dream goals, but the smaller goals that will lead you to the ultimate life goal. And I think for most of us, we all just want to be healthy and happy and like what we do every day, whether for work or for play. Having stable finances is another thing that I think pretty much everybody wants. These are all very basic things and I think should be part of your life goal list. But I'm sure as individuals, you have very specific goals that you want to meet. And being in your 30s and starting over, I think you know yourself quite a bit better than you do in your 20s. Your priorities definitely change when you get past 30. Sitting with yourself and figuring out what it is that you want without all of these outside voices coming in and telling you what you should be achieving by this age, what you need to be chasing, the things you need to buy, the things you need to wear. There's just so many outside influences, and I think the older you get, the more you're able to block that out. Of course, like anything, these goals can change and will change as you move through life. As you get older, different priorities will come in, different things are going to happen in your life that will shift what your goals are. Maybe you have a kid unexpectedly. Maybe you have someone pass away unexpectedly. Maybe there is a breakdown in a relationship that you weren't anticipating. Maybe you get a job offer in another country and you want to pack up and leave. There's so many variations. So allowing yourself to have more loose goals and being kind to yourself if you want to just ditch a goal completely and try something different. Make sure that you're putting yourself first when it comes to this, because no one else is going to be chasing these dreams for you. You have to put the work in, and regardless of your age, you're going to be responsible and you're going to be the one pushing yourself to get to these goals. Let's talk about career and work. So in your 30s, a lot of people are going to be climbing that corporate ladder. A lot of people are going to be making some serious money at this age and getting into management type positions and just really being more responsible at work. For me personally, it wasn't all that interesting to me to climb a corporate ladder to make a whole bunch of money. And I just wanted to find something I really enjoyed doing, which I think a lot of people do have that desire, but with the way that our society is structured, it's just more normal to keep going at the job you already have, typically because you're comfortable and it pays well and you can see maybe a clear path to the next step, where if you were to just completely change what you're doing, everything is unknown, and that's scary, especially in your 30s. And if you have a family to support, then it becomes a lot more complicated. One of the main reasons why I started pursuing FIRE and Coast FIRE was to find the work that I loved. And it took a lot of work. I had to get really good with money. I had to get my investments in order, get my finances in order so that I could make this change, so that I could do this type of work without worrying about money. Because at the end of the day, that is the biggest thing in your 30s as well. If you maybe have been struggling with finances in your 20s and you're just getting into it in your 30s, that's great. There's no better time to start than today. So go ahead and, don't feel bad about yourself if you're not in a position that other people are financially in your 30s. But you do have to work into account the role that money plays in your life goals, in your financial goals, in your career goals, because it is a huge factor. Most of us wouldn't do the work that we do if we weren't getting paid for it. And I think that speaks volumes. If you're able to find something that you would do for a lot less money, maybe that's an avenue you want to explore earlier in your 30s, before you get too comfortable and too stuck in a certain industry. I don't think it's too late in your 30s to do this. I think, as you get into maybe your 40s, your 50s and closer to retirement, it's going to be kind of tough. But I mean, if any of you out there are at that age and have done a industry or a career transition, I would love to know down below. It is never too late to get a new skill set, to learn something new, to go back to school, to switch industries, switch careers, do something totally different. The only thing you really need to have is, first of all, the confidence to actually make that change. And second of all, you have to have your finances in order. So we're going to keep coming back to this because I'm a big supporter and believer in personal finance and getting good with money. I think it just opens up so many different doors. So if you're not good with money, please educate yourself and do everything you can to get there, because it makes life a lot easier. There's tons of resources on YouTube. You can go to a library and read books. That's how I got started. That goes with any topic. That goes with any industry. If you want to learn a new skill set, if you want to switch industries, start researching that industry. Maybe go and talk to someone who works in that industry. Maybe take a couple of courses to see what it's like. And then if you're ready, make the big leap and go and take a job at another company in a different industry. Maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. But I think in your 30s, you're more willing to take a chance if it's a calculated risk and you've gone through all of the things that could go wrong, and try to make sure that you're building in some kind of redundancies in case that does happen. You could probably go back to your old industry, maybe even your old job, if you make friends, if you are a good person and you don't burn bridges along the way. Realistically, work is gonna take up the majority of your life. It's gonna take up the majority of your time during the week. You're gonna spend more time with your coworkers than you do with your family, with your friends. So being in a job that you like, being with people that you enjoy working with, it's a massive deal. It really is. And sometimes I do downplay this. There's a difference between going to work for a paycheck and just getting that paycheck and then living a really rich life outside of that, having a ton of hobbies, having a really good relationship with your family, having a great partner that you support and love, having kids that you spend a ton of time with, versus going to work, loving that work, and having really good relationships with your coworkers where you see them almost as friends or family. And it's not mutually exclusive. You don't have to be paid a lot less money to get a great job and to love the people you work with. You don't have to hate your life if you're in a high-paying job. It's not like there is one way or the other. But being in your 30s, again, I think you know yourself a lot better. You've lived with yourself for a long time. You've probably tried different jobs in different fields already. And I think you have a much better idea of what you like. And if you are drawn to something really strongly, this is a really good time to try it out before it's like too late. I don't want to say that it's ever too late to do something like that, but there are certain things that are going to prevent you from getting certain types of jobs if you are older and you don't have experience in that industry. Do you know what I mean? Like if you've been working as, I don't know, let's say a plumber since you were like 18 years old and that's all you've ever done. But now you want to go and be a school teacher and you want to teach like English. Like you're gonna have to start from zero. So if, throughout your career there are interests, take some courses, maybe try some volunteer work or something. Just try to get into those interests early on to see if it's something you might want to like pivot into. I do think in your 30s, if you're starting over and kind of exploring different options, that it's a good thing to be older and trying out a new industry. I think you're seen as being like more mature. And if you've been in other industries and you've been at other companies for like multiple years in a row, even if you're moving to something completely different, it just shows a lot of character if you've been able to like hold down a serious like regular job for however many years. And I think it's more common when you're in your 30s to be considered for more like leadership style roles and management. And that really helps build your confidence. You should be more confident in your 30s than your 20s. So I think this is actually a bonus to being in your 30s. Let's talk about feeling behind and comparison, comparing yourself to others. Comparison is the thief of joy. I think we've all heard that quote. I like to compare myself to myself and nobody else. I like to compare myself to my past self, comparing, goals I set for myself like 5 years ago or where I was even a year ago to now, because like at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what other people have or are doing or have accomplished, because no one else has lived your specific life. They have their own life story, they have their own set of challenges and things that they've overcome, but no one else has specifically what you've gone through. So you really are not doing yourself any favors trying to compare your whole life story with someone else's and what they've achieved. Like, other people have different privileges and you probably have your own as well. So I think it's really important to, stay away from social media if it's bothering you. If you find yourself comparing what you have and the things you've done to your friends and family, just take a step back and really think about where you have come as a person compared to where you've been in the past. I think it's normal to feel behind in your 30s if you haven't like ticked off certain things on the societal list of what you should achieve, like buying a house, having kids, having whatever job title, having a certain like vehicle, and being just at a certain status level by that age. I think that that's normal because it's so ingrained in us to constantly be comparing ourselves to each other. It truly does not mean that you are failing in any way. Every single person's journey is a little different. Everything that everybody wants is a little different. Your desires, your goals, your dreams are going to be different than everyone else's. Things will come in time if you put in the effort and you are really chasing something that you want, not something that someone else has told you that you should want. It's kind of crazy the way that the universe just opens up when you find something you love and you focus on it for yourself. Just go at it, put all your effort into something that you want, and the success will come. It'll come. It'll come in time. It might take years. It might take a lot of work, but it will come. Your true friends and family and people that love you are not going to care about the things that you have, how much money you have in your bank account, what your job title is, what car you drive. They are only going to care about who you are as a person and your kindness and the time that you spend with them. And that is the most valuable thing. Your character, the way you treat other people, and your attitude are all within your own control. And these are things that you can focus on if you're not in the best place mentally, starting over in your 30s. Just focus on these attributes and don't worry about, like material accomplishments or accolades or things in the career or checking off certain things in like a box that other people want you to do, because you're just never going to feel like it's enough, because maybe they're not things that you actually want, and chasing those things, they're just never going to give you that same type of fulfillment as setting a goal for yourself and then making it happen, like putting the work in, seeing it through, and actually accomplishing that for yourself or for your family. Or, it doesn't have to be such a selfish pursuit. You can include your friends and family in all of this stuff. It just depends on what you're like and how you live your life. There's no like right way to be 30. There's no specific thing that you have to get at a certain age. Priorities change with life. Maybe you had, kids early on, or you lost your job, or a relationship ended, and that can make you feel like you're behind. But it just means that things are changing and you're gonna have to maybe work a little harder. And I'm going to reiterate again, just get off social media. Delete those apps, put your phone down. I mean, I struggle with this as well. I get sucked in. I mean, they're meant to suck you in. They are meant to be addictive. That's how these companies make money. Sometimes I need to throw my phone across a room so that I will stop looking at it. And for me, the biggest help has been getting out and doing things outside of the house, going out, hanging with friends. And I have a rule: if I'm hanging out with one of my friends, unless I'm showing them something, I do not touch my phone. Like if I'm getting a phone call or a text, I might check it really quick just to make sure it's not an emergency. But I am off my phone when I am with family and friends and even coworkers. Just being detached from that device has made a world of difference for me. Social media has this way of making us feel like we're so far behind because there's so many people that are doing these amazing things, traveling the world and just having incredible experiences. But I promise you, you are only seeing that highlight reel. And the reality is those people are probably also feeling behind in comparison to other people that they watch on social media. So it's just like a never-ending cycle. And yeah, the best thing I could say is just remove yourself from that situation. Knowing yourself and self-growth. So you, in your 30s, have known yourself for, 30 plus years. And you have spent a lot of time with yourself. You've spent a lot of time with your thoughts, and you've made mistakes probably, and you've had a lot of things change in your life. You're more in tune with your true wants and desires. And if you're starting over, this is such a good time to build the structures in your life that will get you to the goals that you want. In your 30s, you're more mature, you're more in tune with what makes you happy. And I think that you're more gracious and more patient with the people that you love. You've probably experienced some loss at this point in time, and you're starting to realize how precious life is, how precious time is, and how literally the only thing that matters is your relationships with other people. And I think it took me a long time to realize this because I was so focused on finance for so long and just kind of neglecting my social life. But getting older and seeing people go through different things, connection with each other is the most important thing, like genuine connection, not this fake, like going out and doing things to put it on social media or traveling and taking photos in certain places just to get the photo. Like I'm talking real connection, really sitting down and talking to someone and talking through their problems and being there for them and appreciating them. That's life, you guys. Like that is the key. That is the secret to life, is relationships, working on those relationships, communication. That stuff is Like chef's kiss, when that goes right, it does not matter and nothing else matters. Your crappy job, whatever it is, finances, like none of that matters if you have those good connections. And I think you see that in a lot of different documentaries and studies done around the world with really poor countries that just have incredibly happy people because they have that community. And I think that's something we're missing. And in your 30s, you really start to feel like that is so, so important. I recommend practicing gratitude. I used to like have a gratitude journal that I would write down like 3 or 4 things that I was grateful for every day. But now it's just kind of in my head. Like I'll take a moment, stop and appreciate like a beautiful flower or a pretty sunrise, or the fact that I have, you know, the cutest little cat in the world, or just that my friends are like incredible people. And it really makes you appreciate what you do have instead of what you don't. I think you need to be constantly working on yourself and improving who you are as a person, working through the flaws that you have, because we all have them. We all have flaws. No one is perfect. And being in your 30s, if you're starting over, this is seriously the optimal time to sit back and just reflect on who you are. Maybe, you know, this is the time you go to therapy. Maybe you start reading different books about psychology or watching YouTube videos about it, or just like getting to know yourself in such a deep way that you become, you know, the greatest version of yourself. And it's a perfect time to like reinvent who you are or who you think you've been this whole time. For me right now, like I'm trying to get so much better at making friends. I'm trying to work on my social skills because I'm an introvert. And, you know, for the longest time I thought, okay, well, I'm not extroverted. That's just how I am. You know, I have a hard time making friends. That's how it's always gonna be. But it's a skill that you can work on. You can learn different ways of like how to talk to people and how to get them to open up. And there's no reason why a more introverted person can't become better at talking to people if that's what you want. Everything is a skill. I think if you work at it, you can become exactly the type of person you want to be, regardless of your limitations or the limitations that you think you have. So just some closing thoughts, because we have talked a lot in this video and I hope you guys have gotten something out of it. I spend a lot of time like in my mind up here working through things. So I feel like talking it out like this in front of the camera is like self-therapy in a way. And just thank you for listening. So some closing thoughts. I mean, 30 is still young. You're not old. You're not like, you know, at the end of your life or anything. You still have tons of time to figure things out. There's no rush. I think one of the key points from this video is that focusing on bettering yourself and figuring out what you want as a person is a top priority when you're in your 30s. Not compared to others, but to your previous self. Another key point is to get good with finances if you aren't already. I cannot stress this enough, you guys. When you have your finances in order, everything becomes easier. And there is no reason why you can't learn it if you don't know it. I know it can be dry, I know it can be boring, but it's one of those tools that just makes life so much easier. And if you do nothing else from this list or you take nothing else away, please, if you're not comfortable with your finances, try and get better at that. Another point is to just ignore what society expects from you, what maybe other people in your life want you to do or want you to achieve, and be selfish. Be a little selfish at this time. Figure out what you want. Figure out what goals you want to achieve in your life, because like I said before, no one else is going to achieve those goals for you. And if you keep putting them off, well, it's just never going to happen. And the last thing, get off your damn phone. I know I need to hear this more often. When you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling like, you know, keeping up with the Joneses and comparing yourself to other people and you're feeling down, put your phone in another room. Like, I mean, sometimes you got to do that. Just get off your phone and get off social media. My 30s have been the best years of my life so far, and I'm super looking forward to the years to come. I had no qualms about turning 30, and it's been just an amazing time. I feel like I know myself so much better. I know the things I want. I know the things that I don't want. I feel like that is even more important than knowing what I want, is knowing what I don't want and won't accept. And I really hope that this video has helped you maybe work through something. Or if you have thoughts and you want to add to this, please leave me a comment down below. I am always open to like new ways to figure things out And I really appreciate you being here. So thank you so much for joining me for this one. Hope you had as much fun as I did, and I'll see you guys really soon in the next one. Bye.